Good morning, Brisbane. You're listening Australian India Radio, and welcome to the Daily Air Live Facebook show. I know you might be interested to see me here, but Mr. Umesh Chandra is busy in the community. He is doing his community part. He will join us very soon. Let's start the today's live show, and let's start with the today's weather forecast. Guys, it's very humidity outside, and the temperature is 27 degrees centigrade, and it's saying like, I know it's Friday, but it's saying like it's gonna be rain. So this was the weather forecast. Let's start with the today's latest news. Today we are going to cover like Australia news as well as our daily India report that is brought up by PIO TV. And our first news is India deploys ADF troops to Solomon Island. Let's watch the story.
The Solomon Islands Chinese community bearing the brunt of the fury, caught in the crosshairs of a dispute between Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare and protesters demanding his resignation. The tensions exacerbated by anger over Mr. Sogavare's decision to switch diplomatic recognition from Taiwan to China.
It's more helpful to see the China factor more as a symptom than as a cause. It's drawing on some deep-seated problems.
With the violence and unrest spilling into a second day and threatening to spiral out of control, the nation's leaders sent Australia a plea for help.
They are our family, and as a result, when they need our help, they will receive it.
23 AFP have been deployed immediately. Another 43 ADF troops would reinforce them tomorrow. The deployment is expected to last weeks. The Prime Minister insisting the mission would not amount to an intervention in Solomon Islands' internal affairs.
Our purpose here is to provide stability and security, to enable the normal constitutional processes within the Solomon Islands.
Almost 2 decades ago, Australia led a 17-year peacekeeping mission in the Solomons that helped to rebuild the country after a period of civil unrest. The focus for Australian troops and police this mission will be protecting vital infrastructure and restore peace and stability.
Solomons faces, some seriously formidable problems, and they haven't been helped by the fact that it's had to cut itself off during the COVID pandemic.
As nightfall approaches here in Honiara, residents are tired and are calling on police to step up and deal with the situation. But after 2 days of rioting and looting, police are stretched. Evan Wasuka, Honiara.
And our Foreign Affairs reporter Stephen Jedgetts joins me now. Stephen, this isn't Australia's first intervention in the Solomons. What's this deployment hoping to achieve?
Well, Juanita, the government simply hopes to restore order as quickly as possible. But there are lots of risks here, and as you say, it's not our first intervention in Solomon Islands. In 2003, we also sent troops to quell rioting. Now, that mission ended up lasting longer than a decade. The situation this time around isn't as serious as it was back then, but there are still lots of uncertainties at play. And Australian officials are really keenly conscious that long-term problems in Solomon Islands, ethnic tensions, resentments towards multinationals, resentments at ethnic divides and unhappiness about poverty all create some serious long-term challenges. And until those challenges are solved, there's every risk that a situation like this could flare up again in the future.
Stephen Jedgetts.
Why does the Morrison government seem so reluctant to debate the establishment of an anti-corruption body when it proposed one more than 1,000 days ago? It's not just that it doesn't want to debate the actual nature of such a body. Today, it didn't even want to debate having a debate about it. In the House of Representatives today, we saw a Liberal backbencher, Bridget Archer, cross the floor to try to bring on a debate about setting up a Federal Integrity Commission.
I think we should suspend the standing orders and have this debate. The time has gone on long enough.
This Prime Minister, this government does not wish to instigate a Federal Integrity Commission. Right now, if we were not under the absolute majority pandemic rules, we would be debating and voting on my bill.
The MP from the Tasmanian seat of Bass did this against the wishes of the government and in support of the legislation proposed by Helen Haines, even though everyone knew that the current restrictions on numbers of MPs actually in the House would mean the move would be defeated.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
But not before considerable confusion over the procedures.
Clearly a lot of us are very confused. I'm one of the dumber ones, so I'm really at a loss.
Is there a point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not confused. What clearly has to happen is that we need to get on with the debate.
The result of the division is ayes 66, noes 64. The question is not carried by an absolute majority of members as required by Standing Order 47.
There was all sorts of confusion in the chamber about this vote. The events in the House also put a renewed focus on COVID restrictions, which mean that not all MPs are present, and as a result, that there was virtually no prospect of a move like today's succeeding. But those issues aside, let's not forget that what was at stake was the government's resistance right until the dying days of the Parliament to any move to legislate an anti-corruption body, despite a record of successive scandals.
They don't support our plan for a Commonwealth Integrity Commission. They oppose it, Mr. Speaker. Instead, Mr. Speaker, those opposite want to support the sort of show in New South Wales, Mr. Speaker, which has seen the most shameful attacks on the former Premier of New South Wales, Gladys Berejiklian, Mr. Speaker. I'm not going to have a kangaroo court taken into this Parliament,
The Prime Minister will resume his seat.
There are two problems with the Prime Minister's argument. The first is that the government still hasn't actually introduced the legislation for the body it is proposing. The second is that Labor and the House crossbench don't support the government's proposed body because it would not have any powers to publicly investigate politicians, just public servants.
Today, a majority of the House voted against the Prime Minister, not once, but twice. Hasn't the Prime Minister lost control of the House, lost control of his senators and lost control of his government?
The Prime Minister has the call.
No.
The federal government lost 2 votes in the House of Representatives today on an anti-corruption body, based on the number of MPs actually in the chamber. First, it lost a vote 66 to 63, and then a second one 66 to 64. But the rule is that such a motion requires an absolute majority, 76 votes, out of the total of 151 elected MPs. There was more mayhem over in the Senate, where there was a tussle over the fate of the government's religious discrimination bill.
Because it's not just a question of the rights of the religious.
The coalition party room had only agreed on Tuesday to the bill being introduced, sight unseen, on the undertaking that the bill would be examined in detail by a committee. But today the brawl was over whether it would go to a Senate committee controlled by the government or to a joint House-Senate committee not controlled by the government. The government lost this vote too.
There being 25 ayes, 25 noes, the matter is resolved in the negative.
Today was supposed to be one where the Prime Minister was setting a different tone.
The protection of what we choose to believe in a free society is essential to our freedom. In a liberal democracy, it is like oxygen.
But this issue is very fraught within the coalition.
The detail that I'm keen to have clarified is whether by allowing schools to put in place policies that can guide their employment, whether there are any loopholes that could see effectively backdoor ways of setting rules in relation to hiring and firing teachers based on their sexuality or other personal attributes.
Senator Concetta Fierravanti-Wells is on the Conservative side of the government's internal debate on this issue. She notes the debate has shifted from one about religious freedoms to one about religious discrimination. But her assessment of the bill is also based on the pragmatic politics of an area of Sydney she knows exceptionally well, Sydney's southwest.
And I know that in Western and southwestern Sydney, particularly with culturally and religiously diverse communities, it was an issue. A better, I think, and more long-term solution, Laura, would be to see a consolidation of discrimination law into one federal piece of legislation. Freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, of which religion is part, would be rights that would sit equally against each other.
A government losing control of debates in the Parliament and a Prime Minister facing an ongoing parliamentary attack about his truthfulness. It has not been a good week for the Morrison government.
like to walk because it makes me think about good things, makes me think about life that I'm still around. Sometimes I think about my past, what happened to me.
He first told his story as Rex in the ABC's podcast Trace.
I ran away from home. Things weren't too good at home.
But now he wants his voice loud and his name known. Robert Frizik, the little guy who took on one of the most rich and powerful institutions.
Just wanted the church hierarchy to be liability. What happened? Because they were hiding things.
Robert filed a lawsuit against Melbourne's Catholic Archbishop, alleging sexual abuse by Father Anthony Bongiorno.
It took my childhood away.
He met Father Bongiorno in 1981 after seeking refuge at his local churchyard from problems at home.
He came out and saw me and invited me in. He showed me where I could have a shower in his bedroom, and I went to have a shower and he came in with me, and I didn't know it was right or wrong. Started washing me, all over my body.
Robert was 11 years old. The abuse continued until he was 18.
He said it was natural. When I was growing up, she used to say, I always used to say to him, why did you molest me? He goes, because he loved me.
A number of social workers tried to sound the alarm. Ronnie Nettleton ran the boarding house where Robert was living in the 80s, where Father Bongiorno would visit.
He would go with Robert into his bedroom and close the door.
When Ronnie put a stop to that, Robert started disappearing at nights.
I contacted Father Bongiorno and I said, Robert's not coming home from school. Oh, yes, well, he calls in, I'm supporting the family and he needs a father figure.
So you took your concerns to Archbishop Frank Little.
He more wanted to reassure us that Father Bongiorno was very well respected in his parish. He really had doubts about this sort of thing.
A decade later, when Robert was in his 20s, he and two other young men took their allegations to police. Father Bongiorno was charged with indecent assault and sexual penetration of 3 boys, and he was committed to stand trial. Robert says he was ripped apart in the witness box and called a liar.
He had 2 lawyers. They were hard, trying to make it was my fault.
The priest was acquitted. Robert went straight from court to the Westgate Bridge.
Because I didn't want to live anymore. So I decided to go there.
And what stopped you?
The police came.
The police officer who rushed to his aid was Sol Solomon, the one who'd been fighting for him in court.
I haven't spoken to him for a while. I love to. So bringing back memories just about him.
His anger at the church bubbled over in unhealthy ways.
I sprayed paint on the Catholic Church, on the office. That's my way of getting them back.
Until 2018, when he decided to lodge a civil claim in the Victorian Supreme Court.
I thought to myself, I've got to fight him. I want them to admit the truth. I want them to change their ways, for other survivors, just to keep fighting.
The civil suit converged with other disturbing allegations against Father Bongiorno, who died in 2002. He was later named as a person of interest by police investigating the 1980 murder of Maria James. She was set to confront Father Bongiorno about the abuse of her son the day she was stabbed to death. At a fresh coronial inquest, Robert testified he once asked Father Bongiorno about the murder.
He was just shocked. He just went into shock, sort of. So I found out about it.
Meanwhile, his civil case was building momentum.
is an incredible historian when it comes to the facts of his life and what happened. So even though he does have an intellectual disability, he is by no means a fool, and he knows what's right and he knows what's wrong, and he hasn't given up.
As part of the case, documents were tendered as evidence that the church was warned about Father Bongiorno's behaviour as early as 1980. The principal of a Melbourne primary school wrote a letter that made its way here to the Archdiocese of Melbourne. The letter alleged that Father Anthony Bongiorno was regularly having boys stay with him overnight at the presbytery, that he asked a boy to kiss him, and that all the primary school staff were worried about the priest's behaviour. Despite learning of these allegations, the Archbishop at the time, Archbishop Frank Little, went on to appoint Father Bongiorno to 2 parishes within the year. A few days before the scheduled court hearing, the Archdiocese of Melbourne offered a settlement.
The admission in this case is that Archbishop Frank Little had breached his duty of care in relation to the plaintiff.
Robert's lawyer believes the $3.7 million payout in this case sets an important precedent.
I think it makes it clear that the pendulum is well and truly swung in the favour of abuse survivors, but it also shows that you've got to fight for it.
The Archdiocese of Melbourne has declined to comment.
Thank you to everyone that stuck by me. Thank my family, because I've been a pest to them over the years. Victoria Police, my support people. That's what makes me happy. It's just good to be alive, yes. And that's what I'm trying to focus on at the moment.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you glimpses of the changing India and the growing engagement of the Indian diaspora with India. In our first story, India and USA agree on transitional approach on equalization levy 2020.
India and the United States have agreed on a transitional approach on equalization levy 2020. The Indian Ministry of Finance has said that India and the US will remain in close contact to ensure that there is a common understanding of the respective commitments and endeavours to resolve any further differences of views in this matter through constructive dialogue. The final terms of the agreement shall be finalized by February 1, 2022. Notably, on October 8, 2021, India and the US joined 134 other members of the OECD or G20 inclusive framework in reaching agreement on the statement on the two-pillar solution to address the tax challenges arising from the digitalization of the economy. Furthermore, on October 21, 2021, the US, Austria, France, Italy, Spain and the UK reached an agreement on a transitional approach to existing unilateral measures while implementing Pillar 1. The agreement is reflected in the joint statement that was issued by those 6 countries on that date. Accordingly, India and the US have agreed that the same terms that apply under the October 21st joint statement shall apply between the US and India with respect to India's charge of 2% equalization levy on e-commerce supply of services and the US trade action regarding the said equalization levy. However, the interim period that will be applicable will be from 1st April 2022 till the implementation of Pillar 1 or 31st March 2024, whichever is earlier.
Nepal and India mutually recognize COVID vaccine certificates and ease travel.
India and Nepal have agreed to mutually recognize COVID-19 vaccine certification. A memorandum of understanding was signed in this regard by India's ambassador to Nepal, Vinay Mohan Quatra, and the Himalayan nation's Health Secretary Roshan Pokhriyal during a function. Due to the lack of mutual recognition of the COVID vaccines, travellers from the two nations were facing trouble. People who have been fully vaccinated can now travel to both countries after showing the vaccine certificate, according to Nepal's Ministry of Health and Population. Nepal has been using the India-made Covishield, China's Virocell and 3 other American vaccines to inoculate its population against COVID-19. This MOU is a significant step in easing travel for fully vaccinated travellers of both countries and marks another milestone in robust COVID-19 related cooperation and coordination between New Delhi and Kathmandu, a statement issued by the Indian Embassy in Kathmandu said.
Indian Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar to represent India at SCO Heads of Government meeting.
Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar will represent India at a meeting of the Council of Heads of Government of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization on November 25th. The meeting is expected to deliberate on a range of pressing regional issues, including the situation in Afghanistan. The meeting is being held in Nur Sultan in virtual format under the chairmanship of Kazakhstan. The SCO-CHG meeting is held annually and focuses on the trade and economic agenda of the bloc and approve its annual budget. The meeting is being attended by the heads of government of the SCO member states, observer states and Secretary General of the SCO. The Executive Director of the SCO Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure, Turkmenistan, and other invited guests are also expected to attend the meeting. India is actively engaged in various SCO activities or dialogue mechanisms in the region as well as other multilateral cooperation within the SCO framework. The SCO was founded at a summit in Shanghai in 2001 by the presidents of Russia, China, the Kyrgyz Republic, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. Over the years, it has emerged as one of the largest trans-regional international organizations. India and Pakistan became their permanent members in 2017.
Indian Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu will lead the Indian delegation for the 13th Asia-Europe Meeting Summit being held on November 25th and 26th. Vice President of India M. Venkaiah Naidu will lead the Indian delegation for the 13th ASEM Summit, which will be held on November 25th and 26th. The Asia-Europe Meeting is an Asian-European political dialogue forum to enhance relations and cooperation on regional and global issues between its partners.
The summit with the theme Strengthening Multilateralism for Shared Growth will be held virtually and is expected to see participation from all 51 member countries and ASEAN and European Union.
The summit will also mark the 25th anniversary of the ASEM process. It is being hosted by Cambodia as ASEM chair, and a number of heads of state or heads of governments are expected to participate in the summit. ASEM agenda for 2021 will prioritize issues related to strengthening multilateralism, post-pandemic socio-economic recovery and development, as well as other regional and global issues of common interest and concern.
Along with the opening ceremony, the Vice President of India will also participate in the first plenary session as well as the retreat session of the summit and will exchange views on areas like reformed multilateralism, fight against pandemic and post-pandemic recovery, mitigating global climate change, sustainable development goals, and maritime safety and security. ASEM grouping comprises 51 member countries and 2 regional organizations, European Union and ASEAN. Countries in the grouping represent 65% of global GDP, 60% of the global population, 75% of global tourism, and 55% of global trade. ASEM Summit is a biennial event alternating between countries in Asia and Europe and is the foremost event of the ASEM process to set its priorities for dialogue and cooperation between Asia and Europe in the areas of political, economic, financial, social, cultural, and educational issues of common interest in a spirit of mutual respect and equal partnership. India joined ASEM process in 2006. The 7th ASEM summit held in 2008 saw the first summit-level participation from India.
India held bilateral consultations with Finland and Argentina and broadened the scope of bilateral cooperation.
India's foreign ministry said that India and Finland have agreed to explore cooperation in new areas like startups, health and pharmaceuticals, space and vocational education. The two sides also carried out a comprehensive review of their bilateral ties at the 11th India-Finland Foreign Office consultations that took place in Helsinki. It said both sides exchanged views on regional and global issues of mutual interest, including Afghanistan, Indo-Pacific, India-EU partnership, cooperation in the Arctic and Antarctic regions, and COP26. Both sides agreed to enhance cooperation during their terms at UN Human Rights Council and at multilateral fora. The progress made in bilateral cooperation since the virtual summit held between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Finnish counterpart Sanna Marin in March was also reviewed in the meeting. The India delegation at the talks was led by Rinat Sandhu, Secretary in the MEA, while the Finnish team was headed by Matti Antonen, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Meanwhile, India and Argentina have also reaffirmed their resolve to broaden ongoing bilateral ties. The 6th round of Foreign Office consultations between India and Argentina was held at New Delhi, in which Riva Ganguly Das, Secretary, led the Indian delegation, while the Argentine delegation was led by Pablo Tetamanti, Deputy Foreign Minister. Relations between India and Argentina were elevated to strategic partnership in 2019. Both countries agreed to broaden ongoing bilateral cooperation in defense, space, nuclear energy, minerals, energy, oil and gas, health and pharma, agriculture, Ayurveda, development cooperation, science and technology. India and Argentina have also identified steps to strengthen trade and investment, market access for more agricultural as well as pharmaceutical products, cooperation in the information technology sector, and deepening people-to-people ties.
The horror genre is picking up in Bollywood production. Here's Varun Dhawans' deadly look in Bhedia, unveiled in a poster.
Bollywood star Varun Dhawans' first look from his upcoming film Bhedia has been unveiled. Varun looks very inch deadly in the poster. Producers also announced that the comedy horror movie will hit the big screen exactly a year from this date on 25th November 2022. The poster shows Varun in a tough look sporting golden eye color while the backdrop is in mid-light blue to give an eerie effect. The film's title Bhedia is written in blood red. Featuring Hollywood's premier effects studio Mr. X, the Amar Kaushik directorial is touted to boast of exquisite visual effects. Mr. X, the award-winning effects company, part of Technicolor Creative Studios, is renowned for its stellar creature and environment work in the Oscar-nominated Love and Monsters as well as the Emmy-winning Vikings. In Bhedia, the makers are creating a breathtaking world through the magic of visual effects. With the effects studio behind WandaVision, Mortal Kombat, Hellboy and Ad Astra all set to bring Bhedia to life. Directed by Amar Kaushik, Bhedia is written by National Award winner Niren Bhatt. Jio Studios and Dinesh Vijan's Maddock Films present Bhedia, being released on November 25, 2022.
Bollywood fans had anxiously awaited news about film Atrangi Ray starring Akshay Kumar and Sara Ali Khan. The trailer is finally out.
गाली नहीं दे रहे, तमिल में बोल रहा हूँ।
मतलब तुमको भी नहीं चाहिए शादी?
बिल्कुल नहीं चाहिए मेरी माँ।
जो हुआ उसे भूल जाओ। माँ अपना बहुत पुराना चक्कर है. Bollywood starlet Sara Ali Khan, daughter of Saif Ali Khan, is showing all the signs and symptoms of a rising star. Sara has gained a big fan following. Her fans had been eagerly awaiting her upcoming flick Atrangi Ray. Directed by Anand L. Rai, the trailer of the film was released on 24th November. The trailer went viral right after it was released. The film also stars Khiladi Kumar, Akshay Kumar and South Indian hero Dhanush. The interesting trailer shows Dhanush and Sara having their little fights, but the real eye-catcher is the entry of Akshay Kumar. Overall, at least the trailer makes one feel the film is a cute love story. Earlier, the motion poster of the film also bagged an overwhelming response from fans. Produced by T-Series, Color Yellow Production and Cape of Good Films, Atrangi Ray will hit the theatres on December 24th. एक लड़की को दोनों मिल जाएंगे तो क्या आफत आ जाएगी?
तो ये एक लड़की मेरी ही किस्मत में होनी थी।
साला गर्दा उड़ा दिया।
That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report. Thank you for watching.
And ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to today's segment. We have some interviews for you coming right up. And of course, tomorrow will be the weekend edition. And of course, we will have the property report with ST Mardishmo from PRD. So that will be tomorrow. So something to look forward to. Well, right now, let's go into the interviews for today. And let's see what we've got. Well, first of all, Aussies are switching business suits for bathing suites this summer. So, after 2 years of cancelled holidays, screen fatigue and globetrotting only via Zoom backdrops, it is clear that Aussies are determined to break free of the 9-to-5 life and get back exploring the world of carpe diem mindset. Now, research from Kontiki reveals Aussies are itching to get away their business suites for bathing suites. In fact, 7 in 10, meaning 70% young Aussies, are rethinking of their current career. Well, today in the studios, I have with me DJ Tiger Lily, who is very well known for all the things. So to help Australians find their sense of adventure again, Kontiki are launching Kontiki for Kontiki, Quit for Kontiki. From pre-recorded voicemails to bye-bye auto-replay is a suite of ready-to-go resignation materials to help Australians feel the excitement of travel without the needed stress of how to break the news. So, first of all, DJ Tiger Lily is also known as Dara Hayes, as a DJ, producer, wellness and travel enthusiast. DJ Tiger Lily loves sharing her passion for music, well-being, fitness and travel to help inspire others do what they love and live their life to the best. Well, so first of all, I'd like to find out more about what's happening in this scene. So since becoming the DJ Tiger Lily has been lucky enough to play for tens of thousands of people all over the world. So first of all, the Tiger Lily, it is wonderful to have you here in the show.
Screens, they've had their holiday plans cancelled. Stats actually show that up to 70% of young people are rethinking their career options and thinking that they actually might want to quit their jobs to go and travel.
Okay, so, might quit the job and go and travel as long as the funds are there to do that. Well, number two, I'd like to know, how do many young people see travel as a rite of passage?
So many young people definitely see travel as a rite of passage because it's such a great formative experience for figuring out who you are, what you love, and what you want to be, what impact you want to really have in the world. Australians also really love to travel, and I think in the last 2 years, young Aussies have really realised that we took travel for granted before. So now, 2022 is just going to be a crazy year of travel for everyone.
Yes, of course, 2022 will be a crazy year for travel. So, what are the benefits of traveling in Kontiki as opposed to solo travel?
There are definitely so many benefits of travelling in a Kontiki as opposed to solo travel. Kontiki is fun, it's hassle-free, and they really take all the stressful stuff out of travelling away. Vaccine passports and border crossings can be pretty exhausting, but they look after all of that for you. Not to mention, Kontiki is a great way to make connections and a community and friendship.
And friendship, that is the key things to the Kontiki way. Well, it is wonderful that so what advice do you have for Australians who are nervous to maybe leave their job and start traveling?
My advice for young Australians who might be a bit nervous to quit their job is do it now. You absolutely won't regret it. I definitely love work myself, but I also love travel. And if you're not loving your job right now, maybe it's a sign to quit for Kontiki and take an experience that will be like no other.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. Quit for Kontiki, in a way. DJ Tiger Lily is encouraging people to maybe quit the job and go traveling, come back and then try and look for another job. Well, right now, so that is the one part of the equation that we have today. And of course, now for the next part, we will go to Woolworths. And of course, we know Woolworths is celebrating the long-awaited return of kids' sports. And as we know that kids sport has been taking the centre stage. Woolworths today celebrated the return of kids grassroots sports, including hugely popular Woolworths Cricket Blast and Woolworths Safe Groom programs. And of course, by hosting local children and sporting heroes at a local event in Bondi, Sydney. Woolworths Chief Marketing Officer Andrew Hicks said, at Woolworths, they are committed on helping kids pick fresh and play fresh, with their parents who want to teach kids about natural connection between eating healthy and performing their best. And to do the honors today, we'll be joined by Rachael Haynes. And Rachael will be talking to us about this program. So welcome to this, Rachael. And Rachael is the current vice captain of the Australian women's cricket team and the captain of Sydney Thunder. She is a versatile cricketer and her career is spanning across all forms of the game for over 10 years. Recently, Rachael and her partner gave birth to their son, Hugo, and have embraced the joys of motherhood as she looks back into the game. So that is wonderful that, she could do that. Well, first of all, Rachael, can you tell us why Woolworths is celebrating and what is it celebrating today?
Today, Woolworths is celebrating the return of kids' grassroots sports. As a state like New South Wales opens up again, having gone through, some tough times during the pandemic. So now kids can go and enjoy some of their favourite sports in the community and take part in programs such as the Woolworths Cricket Blast.
And of course, kids would just love to be out and about again. So you talked about the Cricket Blast. What is Woolworths Cricket Blast?
Well, the Woolworths Cricket Blast is all about getting kids from the ages of 5 to 10 to learn some of the basics of cricket. So it's not about how many runs or you score or wickets you take. It's just about getting out there and having some fun with your friends and learning what it means to play cricket.
Well, of course, it is such a popular sport as well. That is wonderful that Woolworths is doing that. It's just not about putting the runs on the board. Yeah, it's the overall experience. That is amazing thing. So, when we look at the community and community sports, why is community sport important for kids rather than just, playing solo?
First and foremost, the most important thing is to make sure you have fun. I know for me, being a young cricket player or sports fanatic, I knew I was just going to play my best when I was enjoying what I was doing. And for me, that meant not only just giving things a go and going out there and trying to learn new skills, but also making friends along the way. And so, along the way, I've formed some fantastic friendships and been a really enjoyable experience. I would just encourage all the kids out there to enjoy what you do and don't be afraid to give some things a go. Particularly a sport like cricket, it's something you can play with your mates, and that's something I've certainly enjoyed being able to do over the years.
Yes, and of course, budding young cricketer players, that's a very good advice for them. So as I mentioned before, how does the community fit into all of this?
I think we've learnt this year, throughout the pandemic really, just how valuable community sport is and how much of a connection it provides, not only to the kids, but also to the parents as well. So to have the opportunity to go down to a local club and for kids to participate in a really healthy, active game such as cricket, learn some new skills and hopefully make some new friends along the way as well. I think it just reinforces some really positive messages there and is just a fantastic opportunity, I think, for the kids to get back out and enjoy themselves.
Well, Rachael, I think that is just a wonderful advice, and getting out there, being out and about is where kids would love to be rather than being locked up, and it is such amazing. Well, of course, there's only so much we can cover in this short interview, but people might want to have a little bit more information about this. So if they need more information, where can they go?
To find the nearest Woolworths Cricket Blast program, parents can visit playcricket.com.au.
So playcricket.com.au. Rachael, once again, thank you so much for being on the show and explaining about that. So ladies and gentlemen, it has been wonderful having your company today, and when we look at all the functions and events that are taking place in the weekend, you'll need to jump on our website, which is the Indian Times and of course Australian Indian Radio, and of course today, by the end of today, you will have received the EDM of all the functions and events that are taking place in and about Brisbane. Well, right now it's time to say goodbye from this segment, and don't forget that tomorrow we'll have the weekend edition and we'll have the property research update about the affordable suburbs and what and how they're doing with St. Martissimo of PRD Realty, and of course tomorrow will be the weekend roundup. So until then, it's goodbye from me.